Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Scrubbed In podcast, but this week it's slightly different. You probably noticed we're back on YouTube after years, after the COVID pandemic. Well, probably still in the midst of a pandemic, but it's 100th episode, so me and Ams thought it'd be nice to kind of share it on YouTube, and it'll be the start of another new series, which we'll save till the end. But yeah, without further ado, straight into it, Ams. 100th episode, man. How do you feel?
It's come a proper long way, innit? If you think about it, we started this 2 years ago, is it? Has it come up to 2 years now? 2 years ago when you called me up when I was in Mauritius and you said, let's just share our journey. And now we've had about how many guests would you say roughly we've had?
I don't even know. Let's say 50. Do you think more? Less?
I think more. I think we only had 30 episodes between us.
Okay, fine.
So about 70 different guests, 70 different minds all on the show. Man, it's just unbelievable. I've got this stat actually that I just wrote down, right? So Apple have 2 million shows.
Yeah.
Right? Now, 26% of them have only one episode.
Oh man.
Right? 64% have less than 10 episodes. So where does that put us?
Where is it? So 60%?
64% have less than 10 episodes in terms of podcast episodes.
We must be top 10% by now.
Exactly. So we're part of the few that are sort of ongoing, isn't it? So that's pretty sick, man. That is pretty sick. But it's not been easy. What about you? How do you feel?
I think it's surreal, man. I think, obviously I called you, Mauritius, 2 o'clock. I was like proper homesick, Coventry, foundation training was murking me. I couldn't come to terms. But you know what, I was reflecting, I think is the best thing we probably did, man. Other than getting through med school, obviously marrying, shout out. But like,
shout out to the wives.
We didn't have kids that time. We weren't even married. So I think, you know what, it's surreal. 100th episode, and you don't think about the 100th episode. When we were starting, it was, let's get the first few episodes out. We'll talk a bit more about our journey from there. But at the 100th episode, has it gone the way you thought Scrubbed In podcast would go? So obviously all the way back, remember we thought we were podcast. How has it been? Did you think it's the same way?
It's completely changed the career trajectory for us though, hasn't it? Because think about it. So if I was honest, if I go back, we started this F1?
Yeah. F1.
So in F1, I think surgery or medicine, training, some sort of training was still on my mind. I don't think I would have left medicine at that point. I think the podcast was a side. It wasn't even a hustle because we said we're not trying to make anything of it. It's just to share our journey, right?
Yeah. So that's one of the things we said, pure passion project, because we did Medigate at the time, which was a startup, and we said let's do Scrubbed In as an audio journey of our kind of experiences, insights. Let's not think about money. It's not to monetize. We had no idea about any of that. No sponsorship. It was purely share our journey. So obviously we've come a long way now, and we're fortunate to get sponsors and it opened up the path to podcasts and peer, which we'll talk about. But I think one of the reasons as to why it's done so well is we didn't intend it to be a money maker. We did it purely out of passion and love. Yeah,
exactly. So that's the thing, isn't it? We went onto campus at 1 a.m, 2 a.m. just to record an episode after on-call shifts and stuff. So it's purely out of passion. But no, it hasn't gone the way I would have thought, because I would have thought I'd be in training now. I would have thought it'd be a side hustle. We'd just be doing this as a side thing. But now we've completely pivoted our careers. What about you?
I think same thing. I think passion project.
What did you plan when you actually called me that? When you called me up and said, let's share that story. What did you say? My
intentions was purely, let's do this as a podcast. Pure podcast. I don't know where I got the idea from. I saw lots of podcasts, but I never saw anything in medicine. No one sharing their story. No one talking about...
It wasn't even booming back then.
Nah, we're talking about years ago, right? Exactly. So it wasn't a big thing. And it was purely podcast. Let's just do a podcast. Let's get it out there. Something fun, right? And I think, you know, when you're there by yourself, you're living in an empty house, things fester in your mind, and you want to be proactive, right? And obviously throughout med school, we were working on so many different projects, and I missed that. But like you said, to flip our lives where we're leaving training to pursue medical education, building an edtech platform, building out Scrubbed In. Obviously, that wasn't planned. Like, who would have thought back then, right? We recently did a video why we were leaving surgical training to do this. So definitely didn't start out how we imagined.
Yeah.
But do you regret starting the podcast?
Oh, no way. So this is the thing, right? So this is coming onto the topic of passion, right?
Yeah.
So we'll go into our favorite guests, and Professor Asif talks about this. So identifying your passion, right? Your passion can change, right? My passion through medical school, you could say, was doing very well in exams, doing research, getting publications, getting into conferences, etc., right? But what happened was the enjoyment slowly left because I wasn't really passionate, I think. I don't think I was. But we've done it for 2 years. We've had tough moments, right? There's been moments where you've been staring out that window, crying pretty much, right? So if you think about it, the podcast has led to loads of challenges, and the fact that you've gotten through it, and the fact that you still enjoy it, and the fact that we're still here, and we still haven't gone into training, right, says that I love what I do. What about you?
For sure. So I asked that because obviously on calls, so after on calls we used to come and do recordings 2-3 o'clock in the morning, then go back into on calls. I used to go back to Coventry. Obviously getting guests, organizing timetable schedules is a hard graft. You did editing. Like a disclaimer, I haven't edited a single episode of the Scrubbed In podcast till today, right? Hundreds of episodes, I haven't done a single one, right? And I know people ask me for advice because I haven't done it. So Amsa's done that. But I agree with you. Passions do change. And I think a bit of purpose as well changes. And I think our mentality, medical school was one way. Foundation training was a different way. But I think it shows the power of saying yes to opportunities, pursuing things. Because we didn't know we had a passion for podcasting or content creation or creativity. I wouldn't say you were creative at med school.
No.
Your creativity and all of this stuff came after the podcasting, YouTube. So I wouldn't say there were moments where we wanted to quit. Maybe there are difficult moments and barriers, but we knew. And I remember we said whatever happens, come rain, sunshine, snow, we're going to make sure there's an episode out every week on the Sunday. So that kind of moves on to the second question, which is, what were some of the best highlights or the best moments of the podcast so far?
So I've got three guests which I've sort of noted down. Number one has to go to Professor Asif, right? So everyone bangs on about passion, and he really had this really cool statement that he made. So he said, the way to find how to fuel your passion for your purpose is with the 5 Ps, right? Your profession, then your passion, your purpose, your persistence, and then your persuasion. So how to get anything done, really. So he talks about profession because we need to establish some sort of grounding, right? So if you think about it, if we weren't medics, let's be honest, how many people would listen to our podcast? That's an unfair advantage. That is an unfair advantage. If you weren't a medic, would people listen to you? Would people take your word as value, right? And then your grades, your awards, people do rank you based upon what you have. Let's be honest. People can lie and say, no, that's just superficial things.
So do you think, let's say, if we weren't doctors, if we didn't go to King's, if we weren't known as the guy that got first center ranking, do you think this podcast would have popped off, or people would have listened, or would have even come on the show as a guest?
See, that's why I have no regrets. So you can say, you worked so hard in med school. Don't you regret that? Don't you wish you were doing other side hustles? But when I think about it, would Akil have come for me for Ma if I didn't have that sort of profile? Probably not. Right? So everything has its place and its reason, I think. So no, I don't think people would give any value at first. Think about it. Now people ask you questions about entrepreneurship. Why? Because you've done so many things. Fruition. Ma, you went on to do other projects. You've worked with freelancers, peer, the podcast, so many things, right? If you didn't do it,
so I guess,
who's going to listen to you? The passion. So Professor Asif talked about exposure, right? The truth is, right, I thought I was passionate about surgery, research, etc., right? I'm interested in it, but not crazy passionate in it, right? It eventually dwindled out because I was never passionate about it. But this entrepreneurship game, think about it. Every day, you're thinking about it. Every moment. You're texting me at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
You're texting at 3 a.m. like, I've got another idea. And it's like, dude, we need to be sleeping, man. So your passion's there, right? And the only way I got to this passion was through exposure, right?
Yeah.
Saying that, how did you identify your passion? So clearly, entrepreneurship has been your game from day.
Yeah. So I'll tell you. So the funny story is, I think I had entrepreneurial spirit for a long time. Looking back, I dwindled in it and started doing a few things while at secondary school, college. But I saw the nasty side of business entrepreneurship, and I saw how it can break relationships, break families. And I said to myself, I'm never going to pursue entrepreneurship because it does this, right? I saw the devastating effects, which I'm sure you know about, right? Because money, they say, is the root of all evil type of thing. So I thought, I'm going to focus on medicine. I've got an opportunity to become a doctor. Let me do that, right?
Yeah.
And I put that passion aside for me. You just remember, at a young age, you don't really know what's the difference between a hobby, a spare time, passion.
Absolutely.
Went through medicine, did it, and did the BSc on innovation technology. And then entrepreneurship was a module in that BSc. And then we did more, and obviously scrubbed in.
Yeah.
And then the whole concept of like, how can we go scrubbed in? How can we generate money to get the podcast, to get the equipment? You know, all of this gear didn't come, right? And then my entrepreneurial side got peaked again, Medigate. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you realize that this was a passion I had all of this time. It got reignited, and I saw a healthy side of entrepreneurship. Yeah. And kind of, I'm sure you would say it's addictive. And then I think that's when things changed for me, you know, regarding training, surgical stuff. So,
do you regret med school?
I don't regret med school. I think med school, so obviously sometimes people get frustrated for how long they spend in med school and the different hoops. But I think med school allowed us to do all of this stuff. Med school gave us, for me, in a weird way, it gave me a bit more of an identity. Because really in college, I wasn't super popular. No one knew about me. Okay, I did well in my exams. But med school gave me a bit of an identity. It kind of gave me structure. Because I'm very impulsive, like, you know how I am. So people to listen, but I'm very impulsive. Med school gave me structure. It opened up a whole world to us. And from the background we come from, we never knew this world existed, having not done medicine, right? Exactly. So I don't regret not studying hard and getting first centile. So we'll have that fight later. First centile versus 10th centile. But I think medicine opened up our world, and it allowed us to do things that wouldn't have been able to do otherwise, man. Do you think if you went into, let's say, corporate world or didn't do medicine or high degree, you would have done a podcast or even had your own ed tech startup, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly.
No, so that's the thing, right? So think about it. Medicine doesn't just teach you medicine, right? Being able to talk on a podcast, that confidence to speak to people you've never met before, right? If you think about those skills are what keeps you going, keeps all of these projects coming alive and so forth. So yeah, I think I don't regret medicine. I think medicine put us where we are actually today. So carrying on, profession, passion, purpose. So identifying your purpose, what it is, what's your mission, right? Interesting question. What's your mission in life?
Mine or yours?
Yours.
I think it changed. I think mission or purpose initially was obviously, from a young age, it was always to kind of please my parents, make them proud of me, make them happy. And then got through med school, and then, you know, we came out on graduation and my mom was crying and everyone was so happy, and you feel like, okay, that's ticked off the list. Yeah. And then you do foundation training, and then my purpose changed there. And it was like, do you know what? I want to be the best doctor. I want to be the best surgeon, get into surgical training, have an awesome portfolio. Yeah. And then we did the podcast, met people, and then this whole thing about education, right? And making sure educators are fairly rewarded, fairly paid, recognition. And that became obsessed. I became obsessed with that, right? Because obviously there's a monopoly of institutions that take education from people like me and you, and they share it with the world. And passionate educators, they don't get a following, they don't get that audience or brand or whatever they sell. So our purpose now, or my purpose, is like to get the recognition educators deserve, at the same time make education accessible. I don't want you know, people think I have to pay X amount of money to go Harvard, etc. We've been fortunate to go King's, and obviously tuition fees are expensive, but there are people across the world that don't have that luxury. And perhaps to make an obscene amount of wealth so I can give it all to charity at the end. Nah.
We need to highlight that end bit he said, to give to charity,
So, but that's the thing with purpose, right? I think a lot of people get stuck on this one purpose they had since they were 7 years old. and they're focused on it, and they may burn out and it will affect their mental health, and they're so driven to becoming the best surgeon ever or the best cardiologist because this was their purpose, and they don't listen to their innate self, and they get stuck. And I think it's a trap, and I think it does more harm than good. Whereas I think having a general purpose, I want to help people, or I want to be known for XYZ, or this is my internal purpose, is more healthier.
And being open to change, right? You have to be open to change,
Malamokin, one of the guests that came on, open to change and open to opportunities. I think if my purpose had been, I want to be the best surgeon, I think I would have been in a very different, dark place, if I'm honest. So I don't know if your purpose has always stayed the same, or has it changed as you kind of grown and developed?
You're right. Your purpose does evolve, doesn't it? Like you said, when you're younger at school, it's about, I want to make mum and dad proud of me, right? You want to get the A's, the A stars. Then it slowly dawns upon you, you want to do medicine, you want to treat patients, get people back on their feet. And it's, I think, you're right, you can have more than one purpose. So an aspect of my purpose is, I do love medicine still, right? I do love being a doctor. That's why I still go into work. But if you said, what's my long-term legacy and mission that I want? So you've said one half of the coin, which is basically fair equity for educators, right? So they get their recognition. It's no longer these big corporations that are owning them, right? My one is, if I say it in simple words, is to put education into the hands of everyone. And how you're going to ask, I think, so we've started off peer recently. So I keep on saying, I tell everyone this, when you connect people, right, you're connecting a whole sort of lineage of knowledge. Think about it. You've had different teachers to me.
Yeah.
Right? So we've gone to the same uni, but say we went to a different uni. Say I went to Imperial to intercalate, right? Yeah. You're connecting King's and Imperial at this point, right? So we had another friend from Southampton, from Cambridge, from Oxford. You're connecting institutions. We've had different teachers, different mentors, different colleagues. So imagine being able to share knowledge between us in a circle, right? That's peer scale. So that's the long-term mission, man. And you're right, it changes. It changes depending on where you are, how your passion evolves. Passion can evolve as well, right?
Yeah. So I think not being stuck to a certain passion or purpose, having general purpose in what you want to do in life, right, is a good way about going about it. But I think for us, our passions are similar and our purpose are similar in this moment in time, which is why what we're doing works. Moving on, what other guests were notable for you of the many we've had?
Okay, so Dr. Nadine Haram. Yeah. I tell you why. So she's the CEO and founder of Proximi, is it? Yeah. The belief in her startup, right? Yeah. Her first use case was her own mother, right? That's the amount of belief you have to have in your startup, right? Anyone can start up a project. Me and you know how hard it is, right? How easy it is to start a project, right? Yeah. We can start many things today, right? How do you make it? How do you allow it for it to survive, to sort of eat and drink and grow, right? So the level of belief she had, I think, is incredibly inspiring. And then Dr. Alex Young, so CEO and founder of, remind me? Verti, an edtech. It's an VR training platform, exactly. So he said this statement. So when it comes to entrepreneurship, right, you should be focused on learning. Be focused on learning, love it, and be enthused by it. Because if you do those three things, right, you can't lose. Yeah. So this is the question I'm going to ask you now, right? Since entering the world of entrepreneurship, what skills have you learned purely through this whole industry?
I think that's a difficult one. I think entrepreneurship, or one skill I think I learned was basically getting something of value or benefit from someone and exchanging value back, right? Yeah. So in medicine, a lot of it, or what I've learned and been taught, is just give value, help people, look after patients, look after relatives and everyone, right? Yeah. Whereas entrepreneurship, it's not like that. It's how do you get or extract value from people without spending too much money, right? How do you bootstrap it? So I think the hardest skill I've learned, or the hardest thing for me, was sending a message to an educator and having the confidence and belief in what we're doing and saying, do you mind being an educator? Do you mind sharing a quiz? Yeah. Right? Getting some sort of benefit and value from them. That was a skill I didn't have before, and I wasn't very confident. Yeah. Because really, truly, like, I'm not gonna be sending out random messages to people, right, that I don't know about. And we've got rejection. I remember once on Twitter, someone wrote no, and I wrote such a nice lengthy message, right? And I think accepting rejection is probably a better one.
He didn't write just no. He wrote absolutely not.
Yeah, he wrote absolutely not. I'm thinking, shall I? Do you know what? We might put that screenshot here, right? So, yeah. So having the confidence and learning to go out and speak to and interact with people at the same time, also accepting rejection, because that one affected me when that medic said absolutely not. It murked me for a few days, man. Like I couldn't process it, and I was like, and it was like I came to you in such a nice way. We're trying to change the future of education, and you're like absolutely not, which is fine. Like I'm in their space, I'm inviting them. They are entitled to say no. But I think learning that and being able to move on is a hard skill.
I agree, completely agree. So, loads of things. So, I think entrepreneurship added a whole new dimension to me. So, creativity is one big thing, right? To think laterally, to think in different ways. So you read a lot of books. So the third door. So for you, the third door. That third door, I learned all about through entrepreneurship, about how to do anything. But yeah, no, the list goes on and on. Creativity, time management, being able to balance, negotiate, talk to people, communicate your mission, your vision, etc. All of this has come through entrepreneurship, supported by medicine though. I think medicine, so I was a very introverted kid who loved the textbooks. Medicine cracked me out of that shell, got me speaking to patients, and then entrepreneurship just basically allowed me to flourish, I think.
I think so, yeah. I think you're right. Medicine gives you a very good skill set if you play the card right, if you leverage medical school the best.
Yeah, exactly.
And entrepreneurship is the one that kind of makes it a bit more practical, that kind of hones in on that skills. So yeah, I agree. I think when we started med school to where we are now, we're very different individuals with very different skill sets. And I think that reminds me of one of the guests, Imran Qureshi or Imran Mahmood, who said skill acquisition, having this arsenal of skills, which makes you highly sought after, highly dependable. I think it's something that medics should take the time and spend. Saying that, the guests I picked were quite different to your one. Obviously, Professor Asif was very good for both of us. Because we went all the way out to Birmingham, recorded him, met him, we had lunch, and purpose and kind of passion and the 5 Ps. I think that was a critical point for us. We were doing a lot of things and we were erring between medicine, entrepreneurship, edtech, the podcast app, Medicaid and all of this stuff. So I think listening to him and seeing what he's done was important for us. So I think that episode was a blessing in disguise for us.
Absolutely. Meeting him, sitting with him, having lunch with him, right?
So the podcast has opened up a network for us, right? He was the founder of Aston Medical School, and now he's the CEO and founder of Merzan Therapeutics, which is worth north of $1 billion, right? So getting access to him is very difficult, let alone to be invited into his home, to have dinner, lunch with him. So putting that aside, the other guest that I found that resonated with me was Dr. Denzel. I don't know if you remember him. And him showing second chances.
He's flourishing.
Yeah, so he's killing on Instagram right now, dentist. But second chances, if you're really passionate about something, go and do it, work hard for it. He went to a different country to do it. He was in prison at one point, and embracing and then taking the second opportunity. Another guest, you probably remember him, Imran Qureshi, the microbiologist. About authenticity, credibility, being true to yourself, being genuine. And you will find your calling in life. So obviously the guests I like are the ones that are inspirational, motivational.
Do you know what's special about what Dr. Imran Qureshi said? It's his journey. So he went from, what was it? He went from GP to surgeon to microbiology consultant. Or which way was it?
I think he did surgery. It was either surgery then GP or one or the other. One made him one was surgery, he didn't really like it. GP, he never enjoyed it. Then I think it was GP then surgery.
And then the fact that you can switch and he was open to that. You know how people get bogged down, right? Some people do medicine, get trapped, feel like they're trapped, and they're like, I wish I could change. But here is someone that shows you can easily go and do it. I think that was really inspiring by Imran.
So let me tell you the other side of that, which is interesting. My other guest I liked was Dr. Farzana Hussain. And I say that and it relates to Qureshi. When Qureshi was doing his training, his wife did a bit of the heavy lifting, supported him, right? Dr. Farzana did the same thing for when her husband became a consultant colorectal surgeon, right? Professor Shafi Ahmed, whoever knows, and she put her career on hold. She looked after the kids so he can pursue it. Yet after doing all of that, she went back and became a GP principal running her own practice. So I found that very
GP of the year.
Exactly, GP of the year. The NHS billboards all across London. She was there. So look at that. She supported her husband, raised the kids, looked after everyone, and now did her own career. She never let go. Her mother died while she was at medical school, and she's a Asian woman, ethnic minority, did medicine years ago, 20, 30 years ago. Can you imagine? Like, it's crazy.
And she's very entrepreneurial when it comes to the GP world and everything. So very entrepreneurial. So on that point, right, sacrifice. Do we live in an era, in a time period where you do have to sacrifice, you do have to give up the things that you love for success?
100%. I think sacrifice is the tax you pay for success, for happiness, to achieve, to excel in life. I love sleeping.
That's a sacrifice.
And I always try to do like a twilight shift or a late shift. But when it comes to the podcast or recording, I'm always on time. I'm always here early, right? True. And the fruits obviously are the growth, what we've achieved so far. But without sacrifice, you can't achieve anything or do anything meaningful in my experience. And I think if something comes too easy for you, then you're probably, like they say, you're in the wrong room, or, you could be more, you can push yourself. But tell me something that's worthwhile that hasn't been done without sacrifice.
The reason I asked that question, right, is because that's the biggest thing for one of the learning points of our podcast, right? So in when you look at people's faces, the front face of it all, right, they look like successful CEOs, entrepreneurs, doctors, surgeons, actors, authors, etc., right? But when we do the podcast and we sit with them, how many of them have had rejections from all these publishers? How many of them had incredibly difficult sort of, growing up as a child? Some of them have had to migrate, start from scratch. Some of them had to leave and do it all again. So I think that's one of the biggest things that I understand now, is that there is no success overnight. We think, right, hard work equals success. I think that's what I thought at first as well. If you put in the input, the output is guaranteed, but it's not. It's dealing with the rejections. It's dealing with the fact that you're going to fail time and time again, and then suddenly they call it an overnight success, isn't it? No, I agree with the... to be honest, I love every single guest that's come onto the show. They've all imparted incredible... Even if we were to be the only guys listen to our podcast, would you continue tomorrow?
100%. I think we said that. We said that in the beginning. We said, if we're the only people that listens to it, or if one person, it was only one, we only need one person to listen to it, that'll be enough for us, because we'll be sharing knowledge, we'll be sharing insights and our experience or whatever, or a guest with one other person that will find benefit. So we only needed one. We didn't need the thousands of downloads or whatever, but we just needed someone to benefit on the other end. And the proof is, remember the episode we did with Osama about pursuing your dreams, or are you too old to pursue dreams? And I think the question was, what are some of your best moments? I think for me, when that individual messaged us and saying, do you know what, I've been thinking about medicine, I'm a bit of a mature student, I've had, a life before this, can I still pursue it? And you replied back saying, of course, you're never too old. Look at Osama, he was in banking, works for X, Y, and Z, had so many things in his life. Father passed away and then studied medicine, closer to 28, 29, I think.
So she went on to, I think the update was, she went on to study medicine because of Osama's episode.
Yeah, incredible.
That's powerful, right? Another doctor was born from a podcast episode. So incredible. So now talking about sacrifice, right? How success comes after so many trials, tribulations, issues, problems. What are some of the difficulties would you say you faced, right, from the start of med school, actually? Because let's be honest, becoming a doctor is a huge achievement. Let's not say that's nothing really. But then starting the podcast, you've had a few startups before this as well, peer, etc. Take us through a few difficulties, some of the major difficulties you've had.
I think, obviously, the biggest difficulty was adapting to med school. You're like a big fish in a small pond at college. Then you come to university and you realize you're not as smart as you thought you were, or everyone else is smarter than you, right? I think balancing it all in terms of I had to work during weekends and evenings to support my family, and I think just adapting to it all. You know, I wasn't good at public speaking. I used to get nervous in tutorials when I had to answer the question. Like basic stuff that you don't learn, or we didn't have the privilege of learning from, you know, the schools we went to or the environment, the friends we hang around with. Getting through med school itself is tough. Exams are hard. Remember the first placement we went to, I couldn't do nothing. I didn't bring anything. General cutleries, general essentials.
Give me 2 trousers and a t-shirt.
Like, the basic stuff, right? That you never think you'd learn. So the exams were definitely hard. Moving out of home, learning how to adapt, becoming more confident. And I think towards the end of medical school, when we started working for different societies, when we started working for MAR, when we started to kind of delve into these projects, that's when my confidence increased and peaked, and I started learning different skills and realized that I am of value. I can help other people. I think, I don't know what to say. Medical was hard, but it wasn't hard per se. Like you like, there's a notion that medical school is so hard and you spend your time revising and studying and you don't get to enjoy it. It wasn't like that. There are obviously moments, but it was doable. If you ask me, should I do it again? I'm not going to do it again, ever again. Like med school was like, look at the effort you go for it. It's worth it. It is. But like 7 years, man, that's a long graft. It is a long and like it's a once in a lifetime thing. You do it once, you don't want to repeat that again.
Go back to dental training, right?
I want to do Max Facts for sure. So people that do Max Facts, we have a guest coming soon. It's not like it's hard. I don't know how they do it. Well, obviously there's different challenges, and I think the bit that affected me the most during med school was when I found out I had to go to Coventry Foundation training. That psychologically, that's hit me hard. Like I wasn't ready. I was 110% sure I was going to stay in London. And to hear that, to spend the next 2 years away from friends and family in a random city with no one you know there, I wasn't ready for it.
But reflect on that now. So you were shot out all the way to Coventry. In terms of making you a good doctor, what do you think it did for you?
So in terms of being a good doctor, I think I don't think it matters where you go after training or medical school. I think at the end, everyone average out to be a good, decent doctor. The learning curve is the same, right? Medicine doesn't change in London to Coventry, whatever, right? It may be slightly busier, less busier, whatever, right? So depending, it doesn't matter where you go. It doesn't affect your ability of being a good doctor or a bad doctor. But I think more for me, the experience I got. So at the time, it worked in my favor because I wanted to do surgery. And I was in Coventry in a small DGH, and I got to get involved in loads of surgeries, lots of first assists, and that, you know, helped me get my experience to become a surgical trainee or whatever, right? Which I may not have had if I was in London, because you worked in a surgical rotation in Royal London or Central London, right?
We're doing similar rotations. We're both doing surgery
at the same time, right? And your experience was very different. I had a very nice, relaxed one. You know, there wasn't any bullying. Everyone was a bit more relaxed. Consultant used to grab me by the collar of my neck at 5 o'clock and say, "Yo, we got, you know, a burst appendix or a lap chole, help me." Like, you're doing a surgical procedure with a surgeon consultant. Like, who had that experience?
100%. No, I agree. I had a completely different. I remember as well, because you'd be always saying, "I'm going to theatre," and I'd be like, "Oh, I'm going to the wards." So a very stark difference in experience. So yeah, interesting. Okay, so what about now? If you entrepreneurship, the number one difficulty you've had
in entrepreneurship. So the biggest difficulty, and I think it's the same for you, is pursuing entrepreneurship means there is a sacrifice. And for me and you, the biggest sacrifice is our close ones. Meaning our family, our wives, our partners, our friends, right? So I don't mind the graft, I don't mind the hours, the early mornings, the late nights, putting work, you know, coming home, whatever, sending emails, messaging people. We can stomach that. But obviously, your relationships take a hit. And if someone says it's not true, I think they're lying, or they're very good, 100. Or they're probably not married or don't have kids yet. But I don't think anything has sacrificed more for you.
100%. No, I agree. Steve Jobs said that. So Steve Jobs said in one of his talks, right? He goes, "I don't know how founders do it for the ones that have partners and have children. And if they do it," he goes, I think he said something like, "Kudos to them." And I see now why. It is so hard to balance. Because think about it. I feel like since I've entered the world of entrepreneurship, I haven't stopped. like running. I feel I'm always on the go, right? Whether it's doing house stuff or shopping or whatever, right? I feel like I'm always running.
So you don't get to rest. So you've sacrificed bandwidth and mental capacity and resting and chilling and relaxing, enjoying life.
Exactly.
So entrepreneurship, is it worth it?
That's the thing. So is it even worth it?
Is it worth it after all of that sacrifice?
So why do this then? So this is the other question I always think about.
So why do you do it?
So someone asked me this question, right? They said to me, "How committed are you to entrepreneurship?" I said to them, this. I said, so I come from a working class background, and right now I'm rejecting easily £100,000 a year to earn nothing, pretty much, from entrepreneurship, right? So think about it. When you were a kid, right, earning 100k, earning not even 100k, I'm gonna say £50,000. That would be pretty amazing, right? That would be that's like wow, man. That's like you've broken through everything that your parents broke through, your ancestors broke through, right? For our background in particular, right? So for us to then have that security, that safety net, and then walk away from it in pursuit of entrepreneurship that gives you nothing, right? Tells you a lot of how committed you are. Is it worth it, right? So this is the thing, isn't it? You want to live a life that's exciting. You want to live a life that's... It's not scripted. It's different, right? People live, go work, have fun, go to parties, eat at a restaurant and die. Do you want to do that? That's the question you want to ask yourself, right? Do you want to leave your mark on this world, right? Do you want to do something where they say, he changed the future, right? People still talk about Steve Jobs. People still talk about the way... Look at how, if you need something right now, you can order through Amazon Prime, it'll get delivered for you tomorrow. Yes, it's a business. Yes, it's purely profit. He's driving... But the fact that your quality of life means that you want something, you're getting it. Deliveroo, Uber Eats. You want food? It'll come to you within the next 20 minutes. Hot food to your door. Right? Crazy. They're businesses, I get it. They're making money, I get it. But your quality of life... has improved. Right? So if you ask me the question, what can I do for people's quality of life, is can I put education in everyone's hands and change their future through education? That's the legacy. Is it worth it? We'll find out when I'm dead. So
I think going back to the question of entrepreneurship and essentially leaving money on the table, I think entrepreneurship maybe isn't for everyone. You have to have a certain mindset, a certain, I don't know, personality to do entrepreneurship. 100%. Because the funny thing is, Peer has done incredibly well and we believe in it and we hope to put education in the hands of everyone. But it may fail. 90% of startups fail. That's 9 out of 10. Literally. So we've given up training positions to pursue this. So we're either super crazy or like just like committed and believing, you know, what we're going to do. I think entrepreneurship is amazing. It works for us. It fits our personality. It gives us a kick. It allows us to live a life that is unimaginable. Exactly. And it probably sounds funny hearing it if you're not willing to take risk or risk averse. But I think only time will tell if it was the right decision we made. But even if Peer didn't work out, even if every startup we did wasn't successful, I said remote to you, even if we died and not had made a single penny or had not had any startups or had, you know, an office or whatever, I still will be happy and content.
100%. One thing I look at, right, is, you know, the founders of YouTube, Google, Amazon, Apple, were they any different to us when it comes to just the genetic makeup, the human makeup of it all, right? Really. Not really. They at one point, we read it 1,000 times in every book, podcast, YouTube video, right? They all started in a garage, in a little shop room. We're in a little room right now. Our podcast was recorded in a tiny room that we found in Kings. So just look how everything is patched at first for everyone, right? Now, I'm going to go back to Professor Asif's point. He talked about persistence as well, right? Yeah. You have to keep showing up, right? Yeah. The only day you said it to me quite recently, the only day you lose is the day you choose to give up. Yeah. Right? And that's in anything. Imagine in medicine, 4th year, it was really tough. If you just said, screw it, I'm just going to drop out, right? I'm not going to persist anymore, right? You've left at that point, right? Keep turning up, ask for help, and get to the end. You will get to the end, right? So it's about persistence. I think persistence is key. And the Y Combinator founder said it, right? So what was his statement? Remind me about number one goal is just not to die, essentially, right?
Stay alive. I think, anything you do, medicine, studying, any career, just turning up every day, not giving up, staying persistent, you win. Like you said, the day you give up is the day you lose.
In anything.
So in your career, in your relationships, in exercise, in working out, in your diet, in your nutrition, whatever it is, the day you give up is the day you lose. And I think that is kind of the bottom line in it all. Moving on to something a bit less serious, and we'll wrap it up because we always talk too much, is embarrassing moments so far in the podcast. I know one. I know two.
Go on.
So obviously, the first one is I have mad reflux issues, so you can always hear me burping and my stomach gurgling in it. So I used to always edit it out, or you used to be like, yo, that's burping, right? And I think a few episodes has me that's randomly burping while the guest is talking. So that's jokes. I don't know I was doing it.
The number of times I've had to edit and I just hear, I was like, Abdul, man, you did it again. And he's saying something important, or she's saying something important. I'm just like, Abdul, you burped again, man.
Yeah. So that's embarrassing. The second one, which is funny, and I will never forget it, is remember that day when I went to King's and we were supposed to record an episode, but you completely forgot, right? So a bit of background. So during med school, I'm just always on time, and I used to always come late. And you'd be waiting for like an hour, half an hour. Like I was just rolled out of bed. I was not really on it to come, right? So I think it flipped when we started doing the podcasting, because you used to live far. You have to pack the gear in the car and you had to come, right? And it was a bit more of an effort for you than me, because I used to just put my backpack. And that one day, cold, windy, wet night at King's, I'm hanging around for hours, and I thought, you know what? Let me not bother him. He's probably on his way. He's never failed. He's never let me down. He's on time, right? And it's half an hour, 2 hours. I'm just pacing around. But I'm such an idiot. I didn't think to message. No, but I messaged you, cool, but your phone was off or something.
Bro, I was asleep, man.
Yeah.
I remember, because F1. So F1 was difficult for me, I have to say. F1 was difficult. So I used to come home and knock out.
Yeah, you were tired.
Knock out.
Every day.
Apart from podcast days. Yeah. But there was miscommunication, right?
No, we agreed to it.
What was it?
But you forgot about it.
I forgot about it.
Yeah, so it was agreed. So I had to call your wife. And then she came and she probably just gave you a bollocking.
She was just like, wait, he's waiting for you.
Yeah.
You're friggin' asleep.
So that day, you came, we finished recording at 2-3 o'clock in the morning.
It was late.
And I had on call in Coventry that morning, so I catch the train at 6 o'clock to get there. But I think that night we had some of the best episodes of this series so far. But like, looking back at it, you kind of enjoy it. It's funny. But like, there's been so many crazy moments in the podcast. I don't know what kind of springs to your mind.
So that was one of those that when I was like, oh crap, I just slept through the whole thing, didn't turn up. It's all related to the gear stuff, and turning up and you ain't got a memory card and you got this. Or there was one app we recorded, we spoke to her, was it Mala?
Yeah.
We spoke to her for a full hour and a half, and what happened was we had to go back to her and say, we're really sorry, we need to have that convo all over again.
That reminds me, the times the camera beeps when it stops recording?
Oh, yeah.
So it beeped and we thought the battery's running low. But it means the camera stopped recording. So we kept talking for another half an hour or two. So I think, do you know what it is? With these things, there's loads of memorable moments. Like, the other thing I remembered.
That was the watch, man.
Oh,
carry on.
What happened? Keep that in. So, it was when we made the trailers. Yeah. I think they were good. When we planned the trailers for each season, we had some sick trailers. It was something different.
That was fun, man.
Do you know what? I'm going to share the trailers again for like all the new listeners and viewers. But like, it was hard. We did the same thing again and again. I couldn't use what's that called? Tripod.
Yeah.
And it kind of moves around. I hated that.
You need to work on your gadget handling, man.
What is it called? Is it a tripod?
No, it's called the gimbal.
Gimbal. Yeah. So like, it was just embarrassing. Do you know what? Yeah. I used to find it embarrassing when we were recording it in front of people, because we used to do it in public, innit?
Oh, yeah.
And then over time, you get the confidence, and like, doing this stuff teaches you a lot of like soft skill, hard skills that you don't necessarily pick up. And I feel like as a whole, everything else improves. And I say that, let's say, we don't get to spend as much time with our wives and our kids, but when you do it, it's more fruitful, it's more enjoyable,
100%.
and it's more meaningful,
100%.
right?
100%.
When you're at work, let's say we take a few days off from work to work on Peer, the days we are at work is more meaningful and we can give that extra service. And I think we can talk about it. It's like when you do these passion projects, when you do these things, I think it affects your quality of life in everything else you do. 100%. In a weird way, in a convoluted way, right?
In a good way or bad way, though?
And it's obviously in a good way.
Yeah.
So obviously there are sacrifices been made.
Yeah.
But like the quality of work, your relationships, you're more efficient, you're more productive.
Yeah, I agree.
It kind of reflects over it, right?
I think the big word is it gives meaning to everything.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. It gives meaning to everything you do, whether it's your work, your play, whatever you do. It gives you a lot of meaning, and that's what I think that's what I most enjoy about it. I think if I were to be, say, training and in a job per se that was fairly routine, I think I'd be miserable.
Yeah.
I think I'd be miserable. Okay, so moving on now, right? So we've done the podcast for 100 episodes now. Best bits of advice to pass on now. Anyone that's watching this.
Let's save that for the second question because the messages from Instagram came.
Oh, go on then. What did you get?
So let's answer those, and then whatever's left, we will answer it. Like we'll give our own piece. So I'll throw the questions to you. So one of the questions was, what do you regret the most so far in the journey?
What do I regret?
Yeah, what do you regret the most?
This is the best thing that I've come to terms with, and I can actually say with hand on heart, nothing. Genuinely, nothing. Everything I've done has shaped exactly where I want to be right now. I mean, you can't have a regret like, oh, I wish I did this because I would be a millionaire today, right?
Yeah.
I think everything has been perfect to this day. Saying that doesn't mean I've hadn't had failures, rejections, low points. Like I said, I wanted to go to Oxford, Cambridge, didn't get in. I wanted to do certain other degrees or whatever. Certain publications got rejected. Certain projects got rejected. Certain projects failed, remember?
Yeah.
So it's not been smooth, but I regret nothing because everything taught me everything for... That's why I think Peer will be a success, mark my words.
So, fine, I agree. I think the regret I have is probably not starting all of this sooner.
Yeah.
Obviously, everything happens for a reason. Everything happens in its own
But would you have been ready?
Yeah. So I think I don't think I would have been ready. But then it's we always have discussions. Should we have started YouTube earlier? You know, look at Ali Abdal. Look at Karma Medical. All other guys with hundreds of thousands of subs. We could have been in their situation. We could have learned so much as well. So I think there are these regrets of not starting things earlier or doing this, or do I regret pausing the podcast and slowing it down to work on Peer? You know, all of these things. So at the end, you do regret it in the sense like, oh, we could have done it all in it, but really, truly, you couldn't. You can't. Something has to give way, right? So I regret not being able to put an episode a week for the last year or so, right? But then looking back, is like that was a sacrifice we had to make to launch Peer. All right, so we've kind of talked about how does it feel having done 100 episodes, which was one of the first questions we answered. Someone else wrote, is it bad if I'm gunning in all parts of life?
Is it bad?
Yeah. Is it a bad thing if you're gunning for all parts of life? So I imagine like you want to kill it in everything, your career, your life, your happiness.
Absolutely no. I would say that. So that's actually part of my sort of ethos, is that whatever I do, I'm going to try and do it the best of whatever, the best of the best. That's what I want to do, right? Saying that, it doesn't mean that if you don't get there, that it's a complete failure. I think that's what we need to fix on, right? That's what we need to fix up on. The fact that if we don't reach first centile, second centile is amazing, third centile is amazing. That's not a failure. But I think, yeah, absolutely, you should be gunning for the top, because was it an Apprentice star that said, shoot for the moon or something and hit the stars or whatever?
Aim for the stars and you will land on the moon.
Similar to that saying, what's that phrase trying to say essentially, which is that aim for the best. Because I think what you'll do is you'll still do incredibly well in everything. Saying that though, we do have to face the facts, right? So for example, if we had 3 different startups today, let's face it, 2 of them would die.
Yeah, 100%.
In fact, all 3 would die.
Yeah.
All 3 would die. So you do have to double down eventually. But let's be honest, if you want to find your passion, if you want to expose yourself to different things, find who you are. And this has come from, I assume, someone of our age or a younger generation to us, right? You're at a stage where you need to explore as much as you can and you need to gun for the top in everything. My opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think in life you should always do the best or try your best in everything you do. It doesn't matter if it's your career, your side hobbies, your passions, your business, your startup, your relationships, your family. You should always gun for it and like give it your best. And at the same time is, even if you don't make it, or even if you give yourself high standards and expectations and you fall short or you fail to meet it, be happy with it. But you should always try to do the best. And I think that's when you become the best of yourself. 100%. Question was, the YouTubers say the name and it all pops up, but we won't be doing all of that. It's a bit too much. So start solo or work slowly until you have the collaborators to move forward with. Or like, I imagine, either work by yourself or start slowly working until you find the right people to move forward with. Thoughts on that?
So we know the concept of co-founder, founder fit, right?
Yeah.
Founder fit, whatever you want to call it, right? So working with the wrong person, right? Especially in certain projects, it won't work if you guys don't work together, right? So we work together on this, right? But there's other people that we can't work with on projects like this, right? Just because of skill sets, maybe life goals, life situation, life circumstances. Me and you have an almost identical circumstance as well, life circumstance. Literally. We almost have identical ambitions. We've got identical schoolings, identical families. Man, we even got identical situation with the wives and the kids, right?
So I think...
So we're in a very, very complementary circumstantial situation. Whilst imagine if now you were, say you were a student, right? You were a student, no responsibilities. And I was a father of 5, but I also had loads and loads of money, right? We're not aligned for the same projects. My incentive, say your incentive is to make a lot of money. My incentive isn't anymore. I've made it, right? So I think finding a teammate who complements you is absolutely important. But saying that...
So does that mean you can't work solo? You can't do something slowly? Will you not be... Can you still be successful doing something as a solopreneur or as a single founder?
Solopreneurs exist. We know they exist and there are successful companies, right? But if you look at most companies, if you look at most startups, especially with YCOM as well, you have to be able to do it all yourself. They talk about, right? Yeah. The whole product. And that includes building it, marketing it, branding it, using it, getting customers, all of that. So when it comes to projects, I think unless you've got all the skill assets there, it's a very, very hard job to do as a solo. And I think, you know what? Think about it. There's been low moments, right? Where it's been like, the podcast, and you've needed that little nudge from the other side to just say, yo, let's get it done, or let's edit it, let's get it done, or tomorrow we need to have this meeting. Doesn't matter what you got, let's do this. I would always say you need a teammate. I would always say that. You can, I'm not saying you can't be successful, don't get it wrong, but I think to really be successful, you need a teammate.
Right. So I agree.
What do you think?
So taking a step back, you can be successful individually and do well as in a team. I think more importantly is to identify how you work. So some people are all right being a lone wolf and they're very good at it. Yeah. Like, let's say Elon Musk, or, let's say Akil. Akil founded Mars solely by himself. He had a good team around him, but he was a sole founder. And it works. It works for some people. I think the more important thing is you need to identify how you are. So an example is I would be a very bad solopreneur. Any projects that I've done solely has more or less failed. And I know that I will be successful if I have a good co-founding team around me. And like you said, then once you identify, can you do something by yourself? Are you someone that needs a team around you? Then it's like, okay, who are the type of people do you need around you? Do you have the same communication styles? Do you have the same ethos? Do you have the same mentality, same alignment in incentives, same motivations? Exactly. And I think when you're by yourself, you have no one to be accountable to. There's no accountability. Exactly. Which is a key metric for success and progression, right? When you're working with other people, they hold you accountable, and like you said, they uplift you. Obviously, there've been certain days where, I'm not really on it, or I'm delaying this, and you're like, let's do this, or vice versa, right? Yeah. And I think if you're someone that's struggling to find the right people, keep doing what you're doing. It doesn't mean stop doing what you're doing. It doesn't mean stop learning how to code, stop learning marketing, developing, coding, whatever. Keep doing what you're doing. And I say, even if it does mean working slowly until you find the right people. But I think it's more detrimental trying to get a team of the wrong people, trying to move fast, than it is moving slowly by yourself and waiting to find the right people.
Because people will join you. People will join you. If your mission and vision resonates with the right person, people will join you, right?
So I think both work, solo and working together. I know for me, I'm someone that needs to have a team. And I think working in a team gives you success. It gives you extra skills, extra help that you may not necessarily possess. But both are worthwhile. All right, next question. If you had to start over, what would you do differently? What have you learned from any stumbles that came?
If you had to start over, what would you do differently?
So that's one question. So we'll start with that.
You know what? If I had to do something all over again, right? But I don't know. I didn't have the circumstance. If my circumstances were different and I could do it all over again, right? I'd do all the podcasting in video. I wish people could, because there's an element of our voices that you get to intimately connect with, but then there's facial expression.
Yeah.
There's a way to connect to people through body language as well. So a regret I have is that we've had 60, 70 people and not everyone's face is on camera. Yeah. And I wish we could do that. But it's incredibly hard. Everyone's so busy. Think about it. COVID. I don't think we could get that many people because they're all busy. They got labs, they got lectures, they got clinics, they got whatever to run, a company to run. How are you gonna always go around from everyone? So I think that's something I'd do differently.
Yeah, I think I would agree. I think one of the things we should have done, or we could have done, obviously because of the circumstances with the pandemic and everything that was going on, having the video element of the podcast, I think it would have benefited a lot more. And not everyone listens to a podcast.
Exactly.
Whereas a lot more people watch videos on YouTube, and we could have shared that message further. 100%. Because there's a lot of gems that were in those episodes. And if you're listening and if you're new and you haven't seen it, definitely go back, because some of them are incredible episodes. And we've got snippets on the Instagram. So that's something we can definitively say. What have you learned from any stumbles that came?
From any stumbles?
Yeah, so any obstacles, barriers you face, what have you learned?
You know what? One thing I've realized is the solution's out there. Yeah, I would say that's one of the hardest things. So I think sometimes you hit a brick wall, you fail, or say you can't get your YouTube videos out. It's not the end of the world, right? It's not the end of the world. You don't get enough views at first. Our downloads at first, right? I remember this point. They were only like 5 to 10 downloads when we first released. First released it, 5 to 10 downloads. Then it went to 30, and it was like, oh, this is so.
I remember the 30 number.
Yeah, so minuscule, right? You think, wow, this is so small. Despite us saying one is enough, right? But obviously you get caught up. You get caught up in the numbers, and now you're sitting on thousands, tens of thousands, right? So I think whatever hiccup you come across, whatever brick wall you hit, there is a solution. And sometimes you can't find the solution, but your friend has the solution. So I think being humble enough and just being okay to ask a friend, can you help me out with this? I really need you to just support me on this. Sometimes it helps, right? Who was it? The founder of Severa, co-founder. What was his name? Will Gao, who said, "Stop asking for advice, start asking for favors."
Yeah,
right?
That's a shout.
What a wicked bar.
So, I would say one thing for us definitely, which has come time and time again, is every time we've faced an obstacle, there has been a solution, or we've kind of figured it out. Yeah. It's very difficult to say how long it takes to figure out, and you do feel very acutely stressed in that moment in time, right? So there's always a solution if you keep at it and consistently keep doing what you're doing. And I think the main thing is learning from other people, for sure. Like, you'd be surprised how much advice and knowledge other people have. And the key thing is, as humans, we tend to only get advice from people we respect, tend to get advice from, people that have credentials, or they got a certain title, have done X, Y, and Z, and we fail to realize that the other individual who doesn't have a startup of their own, or isn't entrepreneurial, or may not be as academically advanced, or with as many accolades, may still have good solutions and good advice, man. A lot of things.
That's how we get a lot of good feedback, isn't it? People just say, "Oh, have you thought about this button here, or that color there, or whatever?" And we just thought we didn't think of it.
It always starts off with, and I'll tell you the best feedback is someone that says, "I don't have any experience with website or design, or I don't have any experience at all," and they give the best feedback ever. Do you know what I mean? And you're like, yeah, like, and sometimes the experts, in actual fact, they hinder you.
Exactly.
So learn from everyone and anyone. There's learning, and that's peer though. Remember, we said everyone has something to teach and share.
Exactly.
You don't need to have qualifications and formal recognition to be a teacher, right? As long as you have the passion and willing to teach and learn from others, it works. And the final thing, which I think is a nice question, which probably help people understand, what's our long-term career plans? What's the long-term career plan?
I want to grow peer to a global platform. That's it, really. Full time. That's what I'm passionate about. That's what I want to grow.
Yeah. I think
Nothing more really on that.
I think that's been the case for us for a while now, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
I think long-term career plan has changed so many times. It's to get to the point where we can work on peer full-time, get education to as many people as possible, get as many educators recognized and fairly rewarded. It's a big vision, but I think you have to be a bit crazy to do something like this. But yeah, for sure. I think that kind of covers advice for medical students. I don't know if there's any other advice, anything in particular you want to say. I think we'll be touching on it in future episodes anyway.
Yeah, I think that's it.
That covers, I think it's what they wanted to hear anyway. So what does the future of Scrubbed In look like? The final thing before we wrap up.
What does it look like? So I think what we're going to be doing is we're going to be bringing on amazing guests. For sure, right? Because every single person has a story that's got a million different lessons, right? Something special we're going to be doing now is I think me and you are going to be making a return on YouTube like this. Yeah. I think there's a lot of, like we said, maybe not everyone is listening to our podcast, but we take away a lot. And what if we can transmit that message onwards, right? Sure. So I think the things we're learning from Professor Asif, from Dr. Nadine, from Dr. Alex Young, from Dr. Will Gao, transmitting that on, giving our take on it might be an interesting thing to do. So I think we'll host our little podcast on here. Maybe, I don't know, maybe an in-person guest or two can walk into this tiny room. But we'll see.
Yeah, I think, the future Scrubbed In is keep going, stay consistent, back on YouTube, doing our little segments, and if we can get in-person guests, that would be awesome. Yeah. All right. I think it's been a good, nice episode. I think it'd be nice for people to catch up with us, what we've been up to, what we've been doing. Yep. Once again, thank you to our YouTube family. It's been a while since we've both been on the camera together, since we've seen you. Amzi's doing his learning series, so check it out. As always, make sure you like, make sure you comment, let us know what you want to see, what you want to hear. Make sure you subscribe. But we're back and we're here to stay. See you guys next week.